Hello, I'm David Braun with Capstone and welcome to the Capstone M&A Minute. Today we're going to talk about a common word that is used when we're talking about mergers and acquisitions, and that's synergy. And lots of times people like to phrase that as, well, that's 1 + 1 = 3. But how do we drill that down a little bit further when we're thinking about transactions that we're actively engaged in and trying to look for where the opportunities are for synergy? And what really is synergy? So when I think about it, I think there's two kinds of synergy. One is we can increase revenues. Two, we can decrease costs. So let's talk about some examples of increasing revenues. We can do some cross-selling, maybe sell some of their products to our customers or sell some of our products to their customers. Another example, we can maybe do some bundling, maybe add some additional capabilities or services. Or we can increase prices potentially across the board. So those are just some examples of ways that we may be able to increase revenues and ultimately, hopefully, profitability. The second type of synergy, though, is to decrease costs. And that's often one of the bases for why we look at transactions. And the way we can increase costs is better purchasing power. If we can do bulk purchasing, or we can maybe have minimum orders for our customers, or do better capacity utilization. But those are kind of the common things that will come into play as you're developing your models. But one thing I want to point out is that the revenue increases can continue over time. The cost reductions tend to go away. I mean, you can cut those costs, but you only get to cut them once. You don't get to keep cutting them, or maybe you do, but it's incremental. But there's another part of synergy that we also, I think, better keep in mind, and that's dyssynergy. And that's the potential that you may actually decrease revenues and increase costs. And some examples of that are where you may have customer rationalization, where you decide that you want to reduce some of the revenues because maybe this isn't a customer group that is profitable enough for you anymore. Or maybe some of the competitive dynamics that are going on in the marketplace put more pressure on you. Or maybe integration doesn't go as well as you thought it was going to from that perspective. The second part is that you may have increasing costs, and almost invariably you will. Things like compliance or training or investments in CapEx. So synergy is an important part as we think about transactions, but I think it's also important to keep in mind, how do we drill down a little bit deeper to what those items may actually be. So I wish you well as you're continuing to look at your strategic growth initiatives, and thank you for joining us for the Capstone M&A Minute.